I want to start a project. I want to tell you about it. I'm going to install electronic shifting on two bicycles. The one behind me is mine. Um, we just bought one identical to it in most important respects. I would say it's the same make, the same model. For all intents and purposes, identical. We bought that for Barb. It's a little smaller. It's black, but it's basically the same thing. And I'd like to put electronic shifting on both of them. And if you ask the question, why do I want to do that? The answer would come out something like, well, why do you want to have automatic transmissions in your cars? It's not quite the same idea. It's similar. Electronic shifting on a bicycle is more like the paddle type shifting you get on some of the sports cars today. It makes it easier. On the driver, it's more accurate, it's easier to maintain actually on a bicycle than a cable shift system, and it's safer. So let's get into it. I have all of the components laid out. I've connected them all together. They all work. I'll show you how it works. And this is a jumble of wires and equipment, and I'm sure it's very confusing to look at right now, but we'll divide the system into two parts. You have a front half and you have a back half. Everything in the front half is going to be external, so that's not a problem to install that. That's on the outside of the bike. The derailleurs on the back half are obviously going to be external, but everything in between is going to be internal, inside the frame, inside the tubes. So let's explain this. The front half of the system consists of the A junction box. This is the A junction box. This is the brains of the system. This is where you can do your programming and tweaking, and it has a charge port, if you can see that. Yeah, that's the charge port right there. You can open that up and put a battery charger in there. It has some mode buttons. There are three different modes you can put it in. Let's see. There's one mode, and it's trying to connect to a wireless device right there. It's trying to connect to a cell phone or a bike computer or something like that. If you hit that again, it's going to go into that mode is fine-tune mode. We won't go into that. It's not complicated, but it's just not what we're doing right now. And then you got another mode, and this is checking the battery, and that green light means that there's lots of power in the battery. So this is the brains of the system. That connects to the two paddle shift levers. These are brake levers, but they're also paddle shift levers. You can look at the side and see the paddle shifters. And the system is all hooked together. So I ought to be able to operate those derailleurs by hitting these paddles. And you can see that this is the right one, and it jumped to another gear. And it's jumping to lower gears now. Same thing with the front. You can see it jump. When I shift on that, that moves. So that's the front half of the system. Two levers, A junction box. That connects to the back half of the system using a long wire, and this wire goes into something called a B junction box. This B junction box is the dumbest and cheapest part of the entire system. All it is four wires joining together. Doesn't matter which wire goes into what socket. It works the same irregardless of how you wire it. All this is a way to put four wires together. So the four wires, you've got the one coming from the front half of the system. This is where the commands come in. You have the one going to each derailleur. Again, doesn't matter how they're wired, but the rear derailleur, the front derailleur have their wires. And then you have a wire going up to the battery. This is the battery. And I'll mention this thing in between here. This is called a wireless unit. You don't need this. This is not a required part of the system. This is something that you only need it if you want to do programming and software downloads through your cell phone, which I will come out right now and say you don't want to do that. The reason being that if your cell phone disconnects for any reason, if it goes to sleep, and cell phones, you know, they time out and they go to sleep. If you disconnect it for any reason, it'll trash your system. You'll basically have to reload everything from scratch. So you don't want to mess with that. You can do that through the charge port, using this battery charger. The battery charger, it's got a little plug that goes into the charge port in the A junction box, and it's got a USB port that goes into a computer, and there's software you can download to your PC, so you can do all of your software downloads that way. So the only real reason I have a wireless unit in this system is because I want it to be able to talk to my bike computer. There's my bike computer, and by doing that, it can tell me visually on the screen, I won't show it to you right now, but on the screen it shows me what gear I'm in, so I can avoid certain undesirable gearing combinations without having to look down between my legs to see which cog and which chain wheel the chain is mounted on. So it's handy for that. It also activates some buttons, some invisible buttons, secret buttons they're called, on the shift levers, and these buttons will page through your computer without you having to push the buttons on the computer itself. So it's a handy thing to have. Just don't try to do software downloads with it. As for the battery, as I said, everything between between the front and the all of this stuff here is going to go inside the bicycle frame. The battery goes inside the seat tube. And I have these little rubber things here. These are designed to wrap around the battery. And they fit kind of close, and they're designed so that when you, this is a seat in the seat tube, you just poke it in there, push it up, and the farther you push it, the tighter it gets, and eventually it gets to a point where it's pretty solid in there. It's not going to vibrate out. So that's where the battery goes, inside the seat tube. Now, why do I need a video on this? Let me express some frustration. I've watched all kinds of videos on how to install DI2. Electronic shifting is called DI2. How to install DI2 in a bicycle frame. And they all start out by saying, we've removed the bottom bracket for clarity. Well, you don't remove a bottom bracket for clarity. That's a little like doing a video on a simple surgical procedure and saying, well, we've removed the patient's heart for clarity. You don't do that. Removing a bottom bracket takes specialized tools. It takes specialized knowledge. If you screw it up, you will ruin your bicycle. You just don't mess with the bottom bracket. That's something you leave for the bike shops to do if and when your bearings go out or whatever. So I've been stewing for a while, but how do I install this inside of a frame of a bicycle without removing the bottom bracket? And I'll just briefly say what's my plan. By the way, if you don't know what a bottom bracket is, this is a bottom bracket. This whole area in here is called the bottom bracket. It contains the crank spindle, the bearing cups, and some sleeves, and it's so this is the bottom bracket. My plan is to put everything down through the seat tube. Everything. All the internal parts go in through the seat tube. The battery is going to be up in here. The wireless unit is going to be below the battery right about here. The B junction box, now this is what I'm hoping to do, is I can maneuver that into this position. And there's lots of room here, looks like lots of room. But if I can get it into this position, that's good. If I can't, I know I can get it into one of these stays back there, one of these chain stays. But I'm going to try to get the B junction box right into here, and then I will fish the wires to the front derailleur, to the rear derailleur, up through the down tube. There's a little trap door up here, so the long wire will come out here, and then it'll go up to the A junction box underneath the stem. From there it'll go out to the shifters. That's the plan. So I'll go to work on my plan and see how it works. Okay, this might be a good time to do video number 2 on the project. And as you can see, I've taken just about everything off the bike except the bottom bracket. That's okay. The rest of the stuff is easy. The bottom bracket is kind of a mess. Taking all of that stuff off the bike, by the way, maybe an hour. Might have taken me an hour. It'd take me a little longer to get it back together, but maybe an hour. And it did not take the shift levers completely off. You know, they're not attached to the handlebars the way they were before, but they have hydraulic lines attached to them. I don't want to mess with the hydraulic lines just yet. I want to get everything installed and configured and working, and then I'll do the hydraulics, because that's a whole different ball game. That's kind of a messy job. I'll have to bleed them. I'll hold that off until a little bit later. But I have removed everything that has to be removed, I think. I have several access points to the frame. This is a trap door up here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's, well, we have a trap door up there that I can get in it. We have a trap door under the bottom bracket that I can get to. Again, you can see that trap door, and if you can see in there, you can see there's a fair amount of space to deal with in there. This is the B junction box disconnected. There it is. And you can probably see that there's plenty of room to get this in without removing the bottom bracket. It's just a question of what's the best way and how can I get it in there so it won't rattle around too much. And obviously I have the seat tube to work with. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run some strings from here out the trapdoor in the bottom, and then from the derailleur here and the derailleur here, they're all going to come out through the bottom. I'm going to run a string down through the tube, through the seat tube, and once I have all these strings in place, I'll be ready to start fishing wires. So that's the stage we're at right now. Okay, part 3. We're about another hour along. I ran strings all through the inside of the frame where I want the wires to run. I'll say it was more difficult than I thought it was going to be, but eventually I got them all to the right places. I have them labeled. I know what goes where. This is the assembly I'm going to drop down through the seat tube. There's a concern about rattling once this gets inside the bicycle, so I have these, they look like wire ties. They're not exactly wire ties, they're specially designed things that, but once this gets in there, it's going to press against the wall of the seat tube and hopefully the bottom bracket and keep things from rattling. For a close-up view, it's, can we do like this? Yeah, we can do this. You can see it's a C-section. It's just exactly the right size to clamp around the wire. So it looks like a wire tie, but it's not. So I know which wire is going to go where. This is the long one. This is the long one. This is going to go up the long tube and come out the trap door, and it's going to eventually connect up with the A junction box. So I'm basically ready to go. All I have to do is pull this stuff down through the seat tube and then maneuver the wires where they have to go. Okay, we might be another hour along. I don't know. I'm not keeping track of time very well. At this point, I'm going to declare a victory. I have, obviously I've got quite a bit of work to do. I have to put the bike back together yet, but as far as the shifting is concerned, all the components are inside where I want them. They're doing their job exactly the way they're supposed to. You can see here the rear derailleur works just fine. The front derailleur, if you watch it, okay, that works. Believe it or not, that works. I made no attempt to align it up, and it seems to be in about the right position. So once I get the wheels back on and get the chain back on, I'll be ready to go. I'm probably going to have a couple of, well, not a couple of hours, maybe another hour to deal with the hydraulic system. I'll have to disconnect the hydraulic lines from the old shift levers, reconnect to the new shift levers, bleed the system, but I know how to do that. I've done that before. So at this point, I'm going to say that I have a DI2, an electronic shifting bike. A few more steps, take it out on the road, test it. I expressed a concern about rattles a while ago. I took the bike off of the stand and I shook it. I can't hear any rattles in there. So apparently everything just worked the way it was supposed to. So life is good.